Imagine a reality where Spider-Man, the beloved hero of New York City, becomes bonded with a powerful symbiote, transforming him into something darker. In this video, we see Spider-Man embracing his newfound symbiotic nature, validating the doubts voiced by Jonah Jameson, and evolving into an intriguing anti-hero. But just how far is Spider-Man willing to push the boundaries of his newfound identity? Well, stick around to find out. The story starts with utter darkness as a voice tells Peter to hurry. Next, we see Peter running through the expanse. He has these black blobs around him as he runs. The first impression we get is that it looks like a symbiote element has taken over him. Peter replies to the voice from earlier and insists that he's doing his best to hurry up to wherever this voice wants him to get to. But the voice starts to blame him and questions if he's really doing his best to hurry. As the voice accuses Peter for being slow, it places a few flashcards before him of people he's supposed to love, from Black Cat to Mary Jane to Aunt May and finally a hooded skull. That last one is creepy enough to rouse Peter from his nightmare. Once he wakes up, Peter acknowledges that he is indeed doing his best, but it may not seem that way to those he loves. To Aunt May, he has dropped out of school, and to MJ, he's cheating on her with Black Cat. Since it's still late in the night, Peter decides to get some fresh air, and that dark blob of a thing envelops him throughout. As Peter swings around the city, you can tell he loves this new alien suit. He says it's the only positive thing in his life right now, and it's a darn better suit than his previous one. It has unlimited webbing and can read his mind. Or is it his instincts? It can even mimic clothing and be transformed into looking like his old suit. By now, you can tell that this new suit is as dark as it gets, both literally and figuratively. Just then, Peter hears the scream of an older lady and swings into action. She's being attacked by muggers, and Spider-Man saves her. Once he's had the muggers entangled in his web, he swings away. But then, he blacks out, and that skull from earlier invades his mind. Suddenly, he's in his bedroom, throwing MJ to the side. Apparently, it was another nightmare. MJ apologizes and he returns the favor. She tells him that she shouldn't have freaked out when he revealed his Spider-Man identity to her. She insists that she should have been more supportive. Afterwards, Spider-Man decides to pay Dr. Reed a visit so he can check out this new and strange suit. He had been meaning to do this for a while, but on his way there, Spider-Man encounters the Hobgoblin, who he impatiently and thoroughly dispatches for being such a nuisance. Spider-Man even goes as far as unmasking the Hobgoblin and humiliating him. Again, Spider-Man is forced to take another detour when he meets Black Cat atop a roof. Spider-Man reluctantly smooches her a little and decides the visit to Dr. Reed can be delayed. The next day, Spider-Man reports to the Baxter building, and the Human Torch lets Dr. Reed know that Spider-Man is here for his physical, so to speak. Reed drops whatever he's doing and places Spider-Man on a body scanner. Reed asks a few questions, and Spider-Man subsequently asks that he be allowed to take a nap while the scan goes on. Again, Spider-Man finds himself in a nightmare. In it, he tries to save Aunt May, but there are so many other victims in his way. He becomes conflicted and must decide between her and the other people. Right then, he wakes up in Reed's lab. Reed has decided on a way to help Spider-Man and suggests that he has to take off the suit entirely. Reed also acknowledges that the suit is a symbiote and that wearing it comes with a price. But Spider-Man freaks out and refuses to give up the suit. Leaving the lab on bad terms, he heads over to Aunt May's place to apologize and reconnect with her. And sadly, Hobgoblin is in the shadows watching them from a distance. The Hobgoblin must be so pissed that he is back for some sloppy seconds. Peter and Aunt May get to talking. Peter apologizes for dumping school, but Aunt May reassures him that she will always love him. Just then, Peter's spider senses start to tingle and boom, an explosion rocks the house. Peter is quick enough to shield Aunt May, and then the symbiote suit takes over him. He punches the Hobgoblin a few times until he can take no more. Then Peter's attention is drawn to the burning house. Aunt May is still trapped inside, and he moves to save her. But then, something strange happened because the symbiote suit won't let him go back for her. Apparently, symbiotes are allergic to fire, so the suit does all it can to hold Peter back. And then the inevitable happens, and the house blows up in Peter's face with Aunt May still in it. Peter is so angry, and the symbiote suit senses this too. Peter subsequently pours out all his anger on the Hobgoblin. Now, Peter has become righteously angry from here on out. Spider-Man's actions make the news the next day, and especially the front page of the Daily Bugle. Jonah Jameson would certainly have a field day with this one. Also, the Kingpin is in his office and weighs in on this piece of news. He calls on one of his lieutenants to start making some calls. Meanwhile, Peter takes out time to clear his head as he saunters down the street. People are generally going to and fro, not knowing who he really is or what he had done. He is also having an inward conversation with the symbiote that had since become a part of him. Peter didn't like that he had killed someone, but the symbiote reassures him that the Hobgoblin had it coming. But this conversation paled in comparison to the one Jonah was having with his deputy editor. Jonah had been proven right all along, even though his deputy insisted that they be cautious about painting Spider-Man as a bad guy. His deputy left the room, and suddenly Spider-Man bursts in through the window and proceeds to put the fear of symbiotes in Jonah. He threatens Jonah, and by extension, the Daily Bugle, not to print anything negative about him from henceforth. Before he leaves, he breaks Jonah's right palm and promises he will break the other one if Jonah does any wrong by him. Mary Jane soon catches up with Peter back at his place. She has been meaning to reconnect after the funeral, but it seems Peter has been unavailable as of late. When they finally meet, Peter simply acknowledges her concerns about this version of Spider-Man that's all over the news. Then he jumps out his window and swings away. Dr. Reed and the Fantastic Four have been following up on the news too, and are desperately in search of Spider-Man before the symbiote has the chance to totally take over Peter's persona. As Peter swings, he is attacked by Shocker, as his name suggests, with one of those blasts. Spider-Man simply knocks him out of the way. But then, attackers always come in twos, and Scorpion is not far behind. Spider-Man simply chokes him to death with some webbing and turns to Shocker to finish him off too. Next, Spider-Man pays a visit to Kingpin, who starts to go on and on about tracing Hobgoblin's death to Aunt May's murder and then to a certain Peter Parker. Before Kingpin can land, Spider-Man punches through him and rips out his throat. Elsewhere, all the usual Spider-Man baddies are in the same virtual meeting being hosted by Dr. Octavius. From their conversations, we get to know that Mysterio has been cloaking the gang until now. This is why Spider-Man hasn't found them yet. Craven suggests that it's high time they took the fight to Spider-Man. On their part, Rhino and Electro complained that they should have done exactly that before things went out of control. But Craven cautions them by saying they would have been dead just like the others if they had rushed in without a plan. Dr. Octavius now weighs in and asks one more person about how bad Spider-Man really is. It turns out, Jonah is in the virtual meeting too, and he is the only one who has seen this new and bad Spider-Man up close and lived to tell the tale. Jonah now insists that Spider-Man has always been bad and that he certainly needs to be stopped. Dr. Octavius makes the final say and decides it's game on. He dispatches Craven to think up a plan of action to hunt down and destroy Spider-Man. So when the plan is in place, they will take things from there. Then Dr. Octavius dismisses the meeting and the virtual screens disappear. Dr. Octavius is now alone with two of his henchmen within his lab. And might we say, the henchmen are dressed like droids. One of them asks if they should attempt to draw Spider-Man into the open, and Dr. Octavius retorts back by saying he doesn't pay them to think for him. He insists that they are supposed to wait for Craven to get back to him with a game plan. Meanwhile, they ought to start arming the men so when the plan gets rolling and they succeed in neutralizing Spider-Man, then the men can take out any other villain not affiliated with the Sinister Six. As tensions rise and alliances shift, a shocking twist unravels before our eyes. Just as Dr. Octavius regains control, a mysterious henchman steps forward wielding a deadly knife. But this henchman's true identity sends shockwaves through the room. It's none other than Eddie Brock. With dark determination in his eyes, Brock claims the ultimate responsibility to eliminate Spider-Man himself, defying the plans of the Sinister Six. As darkness looms, the stage is set for an epic clash in the next chapter.